Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to associate myself with the comments of Tim Kaine. The fact that we're 5 months into this and this is the first oversight hearing is really a complete failure of the responsibility of Congress, failure of this committee to demand oversight, but also a reflection of the reluctance of the administration to engage in the proper consultation with Congress. So I hope we can do a lot better going forward, and that we'll see you at least every 6 weeks or so, not every five months.
All right, let's break this down, because this exchange between Senator Jeff Merkely and Marco Rubio is one of those moments where the mask slips just enough for you to see how U.S. foreign policy really works behind the talking points.
I also feel like the strategy of keeping basically these very weak arguments secret so that they can't be discussed openly for the legal justifications. I've gone down and read them, and there's a reason, obviously you'd be incredibly embarrassed if those were public. So make them public. Let's have an actual transparency here in the United States of America. And let's be clear about what has gone on. We had a dictator we didn't like. We've replaced it with a dictator we think we can manipulate. And if that doesn't work, we'll do something else in order to pry open that economy for oil. And I must say that you did say something I liked. So let me emphasize that.
I'm making progress.
Yeah. You said no U.S. taxpayer dollars will be used, no spending on our part, to kind of prop up Venezuela. Can you restate your commitment to that?
Yeah. They're not going to need it. For example, we're not spending money in Venezuela right now. I mean, obviously, look, I think you're putting aside embassy operations and all of that. And by the way, there may be some program through foreign aid that some of you might be interested in the future. We don't think that Venezuela is the kind of country that needs that. This is a very wealthy country.
Thank you. I'm glad you restated that, because I think that we will see some moment when the administration says, let's subsidize our American oil companies to rebuild the infrastructure in Venezuela. And I must say that's a very unpopular idea among my constituents. I think America needs a lot of investments in infrastructure here. And I think you have a way too rosy sense of the oil economy there. Many experts have said, look, without 10-year prospect horizon of stability, without Canada deciding to ship a lot more of its heavy oil instead of to the Gulf, doing it to Asia so that we prop up the kind of demand in the Gulf, without keeping Iran off the international stage so that the cost of oil, the value is higher. All of those factors would have to be there for our oil companies to want to invest their own money. So I think they'll be coming to the administration. I think you'll all be trying to find some way to subsidize them. But I'm glad what you said today, that you're not going to do it, and I want to hold the administration accountable to that. Second, on terms of the $500 million fund, $300 million, my understanding, has gone back to the Central Bank of Venezuela, and they have essentially exchanged it for bolivars to key industry players. I don't think we have any transparency on what corporations or entities got that hard currency. And yet you did say there's going to be a lot of transparency. You also said, if I understood right, that those funds are eventually going to be brought back into the structure of U.S. control as part of our, formal structure of funds. And in that sense, the Constitution says no money shall be drawn from the Treasury but in consequence of appropriations made in law. So are you going to make sure that if that money comes back into kind of full U.S. control, not an offshore account the way it is now, that we're going to abide by the Constitution? Third point here is that one of the things that transpired is cutting off the oil to Cuba. And I know you have a strong interest in making life difficult for the leadership in Cuba. Can you lay out for us what other things you might be planning in that regard and how those fit into an overall plan?
Yeah, well, I'll try to do that in a minute. Let me just say on the rosy projections of oil, it's not rosy projection. I mean, it's either going to happen or it's not. In essence, oil, there's no world in which the United States is subsidizing investment in Venezuelan oil. It's very simple. Oil company will go in and say, okay, this is the oil you have. This is how much it's going to cost us investing on the front end to one end make money, pay back our investment plus a profit at the back end. And then depending on the terms of that investment, they'll make a decision about whether it makes sense for that or not. Right now, what you have in Venezuela is a corrupt and broken oil company run by the government that basically takes this money, doesn't reinvest in it at all, and basically sprinkles it to its people to keep the glue that keeps the regime together. We want it to become a normal oil economy. That's what the ultimate goal is here. And in a normal oil economy, companies are going to go in, they're going to look at Venezuelan law, they're going to look at Venezuelan authorities, and they're going to make a determination about whether or not it's worth their investment. And that's the normalization process that we're talking about. That's going to be up to them. If they want to have a normal oil economy as opposed to one that is basically used as a way to feed graft in a very inefficient way, but they didn't care about that. If they do it the right way, we think it has great promise and potential over the long term, especially because these investments take a long time. But the U.S. doesn't have to put any money to encourage companies to go in and invest, nor is there any interest in doing so. But a lot of it.
That's a point I really do appreciate.
Yeah, no,
I don't want to see.
Well, I don't even think
American
that's
tax
even been.
dollars going in.
I don't think that's even been discussed or considered by.
What you just heard wasn't some random back and forth. This was a rare moment of actual oversight, or at least an attempt at it, where a senator is openly calling out the administration for secrecy, regime change logic, and the quiet handoff between government power and corporate oil interests. And honestly, Merkely came prepared. Rubio's defense is familiar. He argues that Venezuela's oil industry is broken because it's state-run, corrupt, and used to prop up the regime. The solution, in his view, is normalcy. Let private companies in. Let the market decide. Let profit drive reform. But here, the problem, that model assumes markets exist in a vacuum. They don't. They operate within power structures, and historically, those structures benefit corporations far more than citizens. What Merkely and Rubio are arguing about isn't just Venezuela. They're arguing about what kind of global power the United States wants to be. Do we believe transparency is essential or only convenient? Do we believe Congress has a real role in foreign policy, or is it just there to rubber stamp decisions after the fact? Do we believe taxpayer money should serve public needs or quietly underwrite private risk abroad? What Merkely is pushing back against is the same pattern we've seen for decades. Secret legal theories, economic pressure dressed up as moral clarity, and a revolving door between foreign policy and corporate profit. And the most revealing part of this exchange is that none of it feels shocking anymore. We've normalized the idea that regime change is a tool. We've normalized the idea that oil markets shape democracy policy. We've normalized the idea that Congress only finds out after the fact. Merkely isn't pretending the U.S. has clean hands. He's saying, if we're going to do this, we owe the American people honesty, constitutional process, and real accountability. Because once you abandon transparency, you don't just undermine democracy abroad, you weaken it at home. And that's the real danger here. Not Venezuela. Not Cuba. Not oil prices. The danger is a system where foreign policy happens in shadows, oversight is optional, and accountability only exists when someone like Merkely forces it into the light. If you found this breakdown useful, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Congress is actually exercising oversight anymore, or is this just political theater? Like the video, subscribe for more deep dives like this, and share it with someone who still thinks foreign policy debates don't affect everyday life.